5 tips to maintain good relationships with people. Encourage independence of the person you have that relationship with. Avoid interfering in other people's relationships. Separate the difference between identity and behaviour. Provide emotional space for people. I'm down here at my favourite space again, right down on the coast at Birchington. So you might be thinking, what does Marty know about long-term relationships? Well, first and foremost, I've been married since 1988. I've got 3 good grown-up children and 3 beautiful grandchildren. Also, I spent much of my working life in therapeutic groups, helping in some cases to help people to manage their family relationships. So I had a lot of training and a lot of experience in doing this. In terms of relationships, a frequent thing used to come up that people would say it might be between 2 partners, or it might be between a mother and a son, or various other relationships, maybe even 2 people just living together as friends, and they'd be in this quandary of, I love this person, but I also hate them. This is where we bring about the difference between identity and behaviour. The identity of a person is constant, it's who we are when we were born. However, behaviour can change. So just to clarify these 2 points about identity and behaviour. The identity of a person is somebody you can like or love. However, their behaviour is something you can dislike or hate. Managing the relationship is simply about setting boundaries. You put in good boundaries. Say to somebody, I like you or I love you, but I don't like your behaviour or I hate your behaviour. Unless you change your behaviour, I'm not prepared to have that relationship with you. Make a point of actively listening when somebody is speaking to you. That's to listen without judgment, to listen to understand rather than to listen to respond. Wait for your turn to speak. Maintaining a good relationship also means allowing independence. In all the years I've been married, myself and my wife, we've always maintained a degree of independence. We have mutual friends, but we also have friends independently. So we give each other a bit of time to be able to do what we prefer to do. And crucially, we support each other in that venture. Support the person that you're with to have emotional space. Whether that is a one-to-one relationship, or perhaps it's somebody you just work with, or somebody you know, maybe it's a neighbour, it could be a family member. Avoid interfering in other people's relationships. Face it, we weren't there, were we? When there's a conflict happens between 2 people perhaps we know as friends. So just be there to listen and to keep your own counsel. Doesn't necessarily mean giving any advice, it can just allow the person to be heard. People work out their own solutions. If you interfere in somebody else's relationship, you'll activate something called the drama triangle. That will be the persecutor, the victim and the rescuer. So if you start interfering, you start off being the rescuer, and then the rescuer then becomes the victim, the person that's persecuted. Years ago, I can remember attending the wedding of a couple of friends, and attending that service in the church, the minister added some real sage advice. He said that if you want to maintain a relationship for a long period of time, you need 3 elements. The first of these is friendship, so we need to make sure that we are good friends, we can communicate well. The second of these is respect. Having respect for each other is vital to maintain a good relationship. And thirdly, there is the physical relationship. Now this very good minister of the church, said that if you can maintain 2 out of those 3, then you have a very good chance of having a lasting relationship. If you can get all 3, then you really have got it made. So essentially what happens is, let's say a couple together, they might be friends with each other, and they might respect each other, but there may be no physical relationship between them. Also, it could be that they perhaps have a really good sex life, and they're good friends, but they don't respect each other. Or it could be that the physical relationship is excellent, and they might highly respect each other. But on a social level, they may not be friends, just not get on, not really communicate very well. Now, ministers of ancient Anglican churches in the UK often have problems with church roofs, and that takes finances to manage. And I can remember another minister at another wedding that I attended. He said, as you can see, we're having trouble, the roof is leaking. But the good news is, you didn't have to pay to get in today. But wait, listen, look, there's one final bonus, very important little snippet I want to share with you today, and that is that we must remember to maintain self-care. So before we can go helping others or having a relationship with other people that's going to be successful, we need to make sure that we look after ourselves first. That way we're strong enough and robust enough to maintain a decent relationship. So as we go through our lives, we're all at some point going to experience some kind of bereavement. As I've just discovered today as I'm recording this podcast, just up here in a shelter up on the cliff. Some of the arguments and disagreements we get into can very much be futile. It could be simply something as much as who hasn't put the top on the toothpaste in the bathroom, and having a row about that. A row I can remember having with my wife, actually before we got married, was simply over who was going to wire up a 3-pin plug. And that argument lasted for about a day. It took a long time for me to accept the fact that my wife's quite independent and she has the ability to do those practical things. So it didn't need me to interfere and get involved. She was fortunate enough to learn those sort of skills from her father when he was alive. And there are, of course, times when you can make decisions about something in a cooperative, collaborative way, agreeing on a compromise perhaps. Sometimes one needs to overrule the other. But generally, if there's a conversation about the situation, then it can generally be resolved, as I said earlier, simply by taking time to listen carefully. Now, there are some situations where it can take a very, very long time to find resolutions. In some cases, those resolutions never get found. So be careful about expending too much energy on trying to resolve a problem or an argument with somebody if it's never going to be resolved or it gets very difficult to be resolved. If you do that, you'll just wear yourself out. That could be really emotionally draining. Sometimes some things or some people are just left alone. Also remember that forgiveness is not letting someone off, it's letting go of the situation. So many ways you might just be able to move on from whatever happened. And don't get me wrong, I don't claim to have all the answers. I've still got issues in my life that I need to deal with more distant relationships, shall we say. I'm aware of the fact that those encounters may never be resolved, but I'm just at this stage just leaving it well alone. I'm aware that back in the 1960s, in the early 60s, the Beatles once stood here when they performed in Margate, and they stayed at the Beresford Hotel just across the way from here. And that's now a housing estate. So whilst recording this podcast, forgive me folks for sharing my favourite places to be where I live. Especially on a day like today, when the sun's shining brightly. There's a cool breeze in the air. It's not too hot, and then as you move inland, it does get a bit warmer. To get more out of these podcasts, you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention. Thank you for listening. With peace and love, Until the next time, Martin. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow, like and share. Thank you very much. Martin, Peace Unplugged.